Hi, my name is Michael Brown. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Richmond, Virginia. I've been in the mental health trade for 35 years. And I work with children, adolescents, and adults. I do individual counseling, couples counseling, marital counseling, and I run groups. Along with counseling and psychotherapy, I have a wide array of other programs that I conduct. I do talks for the general public on a variety of topics related to psychology, counseling, mental health, and wellness. I do workshops and I do retreats. I have about 50 retreats I've done in 35 years, and whenever the occasion arises or the opportunity occurs, I do workshops and retreats on communication skills, marital relations, creativity, dream work. I do a program more and more creatively, mask, myth, and storytelling, symbolic art and mandala art. I teach a great many techniques and methods to my clients in counseling and in the workshops and retreats. The techniques are called Techniques for Better Living. They include deep relaxation, learning to think reflectively, the work with visualization and mental imagery, and art. These are the four primary tools that I teach all my clients and do programs on from an hour to 3 days in length. Today I'm here to share with you some energy and awarenesses that come from a retreat program that I've been doing since 1975 called the Wilderness Vision Quest. Throughout the United States and Canada, I've been conducting this retreat. Sometimes it's a backyard afternoon, kind of like what we're going to be sharing today. It can be a day in a national park, a weekend campout. I've done a week-long backpacking trips in national forests, state parks. I've done 2-week-long programs and many other kinds of lengths of programs in wilderness, up to 2 weeks in length. And this program is called the Wilderness Vision Quest. The single most important thing I have learned that we all need to learn how to do, and the first step in counseling or in any of the retreats I conduct, is to teach people how to relax. Our minds are so busy with multiple concerns and issues, roles and responsibilities that we each must fulfill, that the complexity of our lives stresses our body, and too much stress leads to distress, and too much distress leads to illness. Physical illness, mental illness, emotional illness, relational illness. So I teach people how to relax, and one of the fundamental aspects of the Wilderness Vision Quest is to take people away from their normal routines and patterns, the cell phones, the pagers, the children, obligations of work. Slow down and stop in the context of the natural world. After we slow down and stop, in order to open up our senses, in order to open up our psyche to the higher levels of consciousness that are possible to us, we begin to attune to the beauty, to the mystery, to the wonder of the natural world. This environment brings us out of ourselves and enchants us, inspires us, delights us, maybe sometimes scares us or thrills us, but it helps us move our consciousness and our awareness out of the normal routines and ruts of daily living and expand or open our consciousness. So the purpose of the Wilderness Vision Quest is to expand consciousness, to open our senses and open our awareness to the beauty of the natural world and to the possibilities, the greater creative possibilities of living. I invite you to join me on a walk around my backyard. I call this a backyard quest maybe, and I'm going to share with you some thoughts and reflections about the various aspects of my home and garden, and share with you how we think reflectively on the Vision Quest. As I'm pointing things out to you, I'll share what thoughts or inspirations they bring to me, but at the same time, as you're viewing this, you may find your own associations and sense of meaning or inspiration. The truth of the matter is that we all share the same props in living, but we each live in our own separate world. Everything has a unique meaning to each of us, and that's what makes life so interesting and so perplexing at times. So I will share some of the meanings of things that come to me as we do this walk, but you may find your own as well. And please let yourself relax. Take a deep breath every chance you get. Maybe take 3 deep breaths, and join me on a backyard quest. I raise thornless blackberries, and I have 2 rows of cultivated blackberries here, and I have 2 more rows in the back, further in the back. With these blackberries, I make blackberry jam, cobblers, fruit roll-ups, and blackberry candy. I share these with my family and friends various times of the year and at Christmas time. Blackberries are very wonderful to grow, to eat, to share. They take a lot of work. In spring, you have to cut out the old cane and let the canes that have grown up the previous year flower and bloom. You can see how wonderful this time of year is for the blackberries. It's May 28th. These berries are green now at the end of May, beginning of June, and by the 4th of July they will all be ripe. This whole array of berries will be beautifully ripened and ready to pick. This is what's exciting. While the old canes from last year are full of blooms still and full of berries, here's the vigorous new growth. This will grow taller and stretch out, grow 6, 8, 10 feet long. And this represents the canes that will make the berries for next year. So in our own lives, while we are so productive with our initiatives, our challenges, our tasks, our priorities, if the ground is fertile, if our lives are healthy, new life is emerging all the time. Things that begin today come to fruition next year. So the blackberries are a teacher about life and its propagation and its continuation. This is a Concord grape plant that I put into the ground yesterday. I had a more vigorous 3-year-old plant that didn't make it through the winter, and so I've replanted this as part of my grape arbor. You see behind me, I have 6 kinds of grapes that I grow. Again, grapes are an interesting study in terms of reflections from the world of nature to how our lives work psychologically. In the fall, when the leaves have died, grapes are pruned back 80%. 80% of the vines that grow this year and that produce the grapes are cut away, leaving only the root stock left. The grapes grow on new growth that comes in the spring. Psychologically, many times life is severe with us. We lose a partner, we lose a job, we lose our health, and we are challenged to recover and continue. And the grapes are an interesting study because they need such a heavy pruning to be vigorous in their fruit in the following summer. Grapes are very beautiful when they're forming, little tiny clusters. These will obviously swell larger and larger and become very juicy Concord grapes. One of the first to be available for eating in the grape season. You can see the architecture of this grape arbor, quite open, relatively skeletal as the grapes begin to grow and stretch their vines. In the middle of the summer, this is completely enclosed. This is like a sacred, cool sanctuary in the hottest part of the summer. This is entirely enclosed with grapes. And it's fun to come back in here and sit and meditate, rest as I'm working in the garden from the heat of the day. It's 10 degrees at least cooler in the summer. As we try to reflect on what that means, I think we each need a resting place in our day, in our lives. Sometimes we have to wait for vacation. Sometimes if we know how to relax, we can take 10 or 15 or 20 minutes at lunch, on an afternoon. We need sanctuary, we need quiet places to relax and reflect. This is my potato patch. It's 20 by 20, and in this area I have red-skin Pontiac potatoes. What I'd like to talk about in this little section is soil, how important soil is. In this section and across all my garden plots, I bring 7 pickup truckloads of horse manure and sawdust in the spring, in February, March, and distribute it on top of the ground and then rototill it in. That enriches the soil every year, and I've been doing that for 14 years. So this soil is very rich and very loamy, very loose and fertile. Out of this patch of potatoes, I'll probably get 300 pounds of potatoes. So the study psychologically is one of preparation, preparing the soil in our thoughts, in our hearts, in our interactions, to be loose, to be flexible. The point of good soil is when the soil is loose and rich, the plant doesn't have to struggle against, say, clay or stone or compaction. It can grow if it has water and food. It can grow to its maximum productivity. And the same is true for us. We need to loosen up. We need to address and resolve the issues that make us hunker down or tighten up. We need to face and release the things that make us afraid, about which we have fear, so that we can open more and more to the opportunities of interactions with others, to our business opportunities, to our children, our spouses. I'm going to show you how loose the soil is. And I'm going to pull up one of these and show you what little new red-skin Pontiac potatoes look like. 10 weeks from planting. This is one potato plant. You see all these vines coming out of one seed potato. It's early, but as soon as the potato flowers, there are new potatoes that you can pull up and eat. You just reach into the rich, loose soil and find your harvest. So these are called new potatoes. We can start eating our potatoes from now till they harvest the second or third week in July. You can see the little tiny potatoes coming off the little tubers. These are the big ones that have made so far. Early harvest, as many as we need. The sprouts of new possibilities. This is a springtime garden. The studies of nature have to do with the beginning of things. For instance, this is how asparagus begins. It comes up from a root plant that's planted 3 years ago. Asparagus is an interesting study because you plant the crown root 1 year and it grows a little bit and you leave it alone, and the second year it grows little tiny asparagus and you don't harvest them, and then from the third year on you have as much asparagus as you want to eat from the middle of March till the beginning of June. As asparagus gets taller and older, it becomes fern-like, stretching up, and becomes ultimately a very pretty addition to any garden. These will continue to grow and just fill this whole garden plot with very beautiful plants. In our lives, again, initiatives often take a year, 2, 3, 5 years to come to fruition. And as a gardener, you have to bet on the future. You have to think ahead. I think ahead after I till the soil, where will I lay out my garden? Where will my flowers be? Where will my vegetables be? What goes together? You think ahead. Asparagus, this is an asparagus plot that will last 20, 25 years. Takes 3 years to make it come up. Many lessons there. This is my tomato patch. I have 32 tomato plants, 4 varieties: Early Girls, Big Boy, Beef Master, oh no, I guess it's Beef Steak, and cherry tomatoes. Tomatoes are a study in support, tying, and pruning. Tomato plants need strong support to grow up so they don't fall over, run along the ground, be open to disease, animals eating them, bugs that crawl on the ground. I use steel rebar beams, 3/8 of an inch in diameter, that are 10 feet tall, and I bend them in a U shape, and these tomato plants will grow up and fill this whole section. These rebar beams will last 3 generations, as opposed to using wooden stakes, which last a season and you throw them away. So you see the kind of support this allows, and I tie them up to give them the support they need, and we'll continue to tie them up in this patch as they create tomatoes. Here are tomato blooms. And tomatoes are also a study in pruning. At every juncture of leaves, there's another stem or stalk that wants to grow. And if you want large tomatoes, fewer but larger tomatoes, what you do is you prune that right off. All of the tomato plants. And then the energy goes straight up the vine along the primary branch, and the tomatoes are best managed that way. Certainly in our lives, we need strong supports around us. We need to prune our activities. Certainly we have many thoughts, many impulses. We have to decide where our values are, where our priorities are, prune away the things that prevent us from living rich and full lives. Thus are some of the lessons of the tomato plant. Here we have seedling watermelon plants coming up in pots. They will be planted in where the potatoes are now. The potatoes will be done and harvested the first or second week in July. And these watermelon plants will get a good hearty start in these pots, fill up this pot with roots. And when the potatoes are done, the watermelons have a great start, and then they will fill that whole plot up with watermelons. So again, the concept is one of thinking ahead, multiple use of a garden plot, and thinking about the time it takes for any crop to mature. Watermelons take 90 days. Pretty much everything takes 90 days in the garden from planting to harvest. So July, put them in the ground in July, August, September. Toward the end of September, beginning of October, we'll have watermelons aplenty. Planning, thinking ahead. This is a zucchini squash plant. You notice it's begun to flower already, and I have it contained in a plastic web-like structure surrounded by this rebar. If you've ever seen the squash plant, it's a very vigorous, big-leafed, wonderful grower, and it takes a lot of space in the garden. So what I do to get maximum use of my garden space, I create these little holsters, if you will, for my zucchini plants, and they will fill up this little area instead of running down and out and all over the ground. This is cucumbers. You see again the rebar. You see how I tie them up. I have cucumbers as well run along the ground, but you can grow up instead of out, and so I will tie strings up between this, and I will tie strings up between these, and this whole area in a month will be full of running vines, creating cucumber. Maximum utilization of space. There is so much in our lives we can do within the space we have if we get creative. If we let things just run wild, our lives aren't really as productive as they might be if we prune, tie, think ahead, grow up instead of out. The zucchini, tomato, the cucumber, all, and even melons, cantaloupe, not watermelons, but cantaloupe too, can grow up and be supported by trellises and get the very most out of a garden spot. Of course, this is the compost pile. Everything that has matured and fruited, we take the goodness from the plant and we turn it back into compost. These are potatoes, onions, broccoli stalks from last year. Uh, you put them on a pile, put a little dirt on them, keep them moist a little bit, and they break down. All the minerals that were used to make the structures of the plant release, become very rich, and get distributed back on the garden as well. So recycling is an important part of a healthy garden, and certainly recycling is an important part of our lives as well. When life experience is complete or are concluded, we need to take the time to compost them, to bring them together, to pull out of our experiences the wisdom, the lessons, the patterns that we can study, to start again, to enrich our lives. Composting as a concept is important, not only in gardening, but in our lives as well. We have over here a robin. We could we have a garden visitor, robin, who comes very close to me and visits quite often. He's unafraid. He hunts this garden, feeds his family. I find robins, rabbits, snakes, turtles, all moles, all manner of wildlife come to visit, and don't bother my garden too much. Year by year, the wheel goes round and round, from tilling to planting to pruning to harvesting to composting. The seasons challenge and delight every backyard gardener. We have a little structure here that I've created for people to sit on and to enjoy the garden, demonstrating the stages of growth from sprouting to harvest. And in the background, a whole nother garden plot that I will take you to and have a look at. This is the back end of the blackberry patch. You can see that I have 2 rows in the front part of my yard, and then I've propagated the blackberries along the fence and then along the back as well. This began as 2 rows of blackberries, and now it is growing. The way that blackberries propagate, you take the long arm of the blackberry vine and you plant it. You can see this long arm here. In the fall, the end of the blackberry plant, you just put it in the ground, you bury it. And from the tip end of the blackberry, it sprouts and roots. All of these are how the blackberry plant propagates along this fence. You can see a very nice stand here of new blackberries. They weren't here last year, no plants were here. But the tip end of the blackberry planted has brought all of this richness, and this will be just covered with blackberries by the blackberry vines by the end of the season, and next spring will be just replete with berries. So in our lives, our initiatives, our actions, our words, our visions reach out way out in front of us, and we don't know how they'll be planted, but surely they are. And the things that we do now have consequences. We can think ahead and plant those things now that we wish to be more fruitful later. Last fall I planted onions to overwinter, and this we see here the last remaining member of his tribe that's about to go to seed. Yesterday I pulled all the onions that I planted in the fall and have those to eat for now. And then you see here the spring planting of onions, which are coming up nicely. At the base of the onions you'll see 3 plant sets. These are cantaloupe that are beginning, and the onions will go out, and the cantaloupe will be growing, and in August this will be just full of these cantaloupe running from rebar to rebar, up off the ground, supported by string, filling this spot. Lettuce, cabbages, and cauliflower. You might note how big these cabbages are. These are hybrid cabbages. Southern States was selling a special brand of cabbage that'll grow to be 40 pounds each head. Normal cabbage is 2 or 3, 4 pound head. You can see how wondrous and big and luxurious are these plants. So these are hybrids. When I stop to think about what reflection, what inspiration can I draw from the hybrid cabbage, I think about the help of people that's unexpected, that come into my life with generosity, with support for projects that I want to do and share, that make my life much richer and much fuller than I could just do by myself alone. I suppose that's true for all of us. In our lives there are hybrids, special people that come and contribute, that make a big difference in our lives. Peas are vigorous growers. They need to grow up, and they need support as well, so I've created this structure. As they grow, I add a line of string each time they grow 3 or 4 inches tall. In a month's time that will be just a canopy of peas. And understanding what they need, being prepared for their support in our lives, with our children, with our grandchildren. And when we come to understand the principles of living as we age, as we reflect, we can think ahead and do good things for people that are coming behind us, perhaps in the world of work, perhaps in our own families. Here we have a raspberry patch. Again, underneath the raspberries, underneath everything that I grow, I have soaker hoses. Everything that you've seen has a watering hose underneath it. Here in Virginia we've had 3 pretty droughtful summers, and so to hedge my bet against the lack of water, I have soaker hoses, and all of these plants need great watering. The raspberries are just coming in. They're about to bloom and fruit. The fruits will be ripe in a month, 3 weeks. We have an owl here. It's hard to keep the birds, the robins, the mockingbird off of fruit, so that is intended to scare away the scavengers. Later, as the raspberries come in, I will also put a netting over them to keep the birds away, should I want to have any for our own use as well. Netting is an interesting concept, to keep things away. to have boundaries, to keep from us and from our important initiatives and our people predators, dangerous influences, so that we can enjoy product of our initiatives fully. Here we have ye old woodpile. I'm constantly pruning the trees that are around the house, and this comes from an old cherry tree that passed away, sitting here in the woodpile drying for burning in the chiminea, burning in fireplace in the winter. Again, interesting, Native American people say that fire, the release of fire from burning wood, is the release of captured sunlight. Surely that's true. The tree leafs out and through photosynthesis creates more wood, capturing the sunlight. When it's cold, when it's dark, when we want to heat, when we want to cook, we use the power of the sun to provide these necessities for us. As we slow down in the natural world, we come to think about essential things. Water. If I don't water, my plants dry up. If I water abundantly, they grow well. How do we use water? How close are we to the element of water? Certainly fire, to cook, to warm, to provide light. We don't think of these things. We are natural creatures living in an unnatural world where we are very distant from the elements, very distant from the essential things about ourselves. So a backyard vision quest, a walk in nature, a weekend camp out, a wilderness vision quest, come back to the essentials. We come back to the most important things, the platforms, the foundations for our personal lives, our family lives, our professional lives. Here I sit on a woodpile. These are some of the reflections and inspirations it brings me. This is a very beautiful stand of hollyhocks. What's interesting about this is that this is completely a volunteer blessing in my garden. 3 years ago I had hollyhocks, and they were very beautiful, and the following year they didn't make it. They died out. Something happened to the roots. This year those roots did survive though, and this spring now it's just filled with, it's going to be a gorgeous stand of hollyhocks in another 3 weeks. When I think about this in a reflective manner, you know, gardening, the natural world is full of life that got there, if you will, voluntarily, unexpectedly. The squirrel buries an acorn and up comes an oak tree. These hollyhocks, unexpected, beautiful stand here that'll be in bloom in about 3 weeks. In our lives, think about Johnny Appleseed. We are, each of us, a Johnny Appleseed as we give encouragement and support to people in our own lives. People make comments or offer advice, maybe loan us a little money if we're in tight spots or in dire straits. These voluntary acts have unexpected and sometimes remarkably wonderful consequences. I'm a big-time dahlia gardener. I have 25 varieties of dahlias in my garden, and I thought I would spend a minute telling you about the dahlia. This is what a dahlia tuber looks like. uh, when you plant it in the ground, you're looking for a little tiny eye. If you can see that little spot there. That's what you look like. That tells you that the dahlia tuber is alive and vital. Here's one that's beginning to come up a little bigger. Here's one that's really beginning to take off. Up from the eye. And so bordering my garden on three sides of the potato field, which will then be a watermelon patch, I have dahlias. And you can see I have them planted 4 by 4 all the way along the length and the width of my garden. And by the middle of July, these potatoes will be gone. This will be flat. Watermelons will start running. And where all you see the rebar arches, this will be filled with 25 varieties of the most beautiful flowers. The dahlia. Cassis-Aggie, lilac mist, cloudburst, bodacious, hissy fits, curlicue, optic illusion, bumble rumble. It's exciting to see the dahlias come up and slowly fill in the space. When my children were little, we had an 18-foot diameter above ground swimming pool, and it was a wonderful recreational opportunity and experience for the children and their friends and our friends. And summer after summer, our family, their friends, our friends would come to enjoy the swimming pool. My son is now 28, and by the way, he's my videographer, Damien. Thank you, Damien, for shooting this show for me. And my daughter Gabrielle is 26. They've long been gone from the home. So this year I took down the swimming pool. They no longer used it. We didn't either. And I've turned it into a garden plot. You'll see 10 blueberry plants, and in the midst of them zinnias, marigolds, and petunias. These blueberry plants are 3 years old, and they now are fruiting with blueberries. In 5 years' time, these plants will be 8 feet tall and 6 feet wide, and I'll have a beautiful semicircular hedge of blueberries for my wife and me to enjoy, the kids, the family. Converting old recreational spaces into new inspiring places, to constantly be renewing our energies, the things that delight us, letting go of the old, working hard to bring in the new. This was 20 years of water on this plot, and it took me many hours, 15 hours or so, to spade this Virginia clay, concrete clay, to spade into it 2.5 tons of topsoil and sawdust and horse manure, to open it up and give a garden to what once was sort of a ceramic piece of ground, the Virginia soil. We now have the pleasure of these flowers that are growing, the bird bath, watching the birds splash and play, and year after year new gardens will grow in a shrinking plot as the blueberries mature and grow taller. So this time together is what I call Backyard Vision Quest. showing you some of the things that I grow. I do 40 clinical hours of counseling a week with children, adolescents, and adults. I do individual, family, couples, and group counseling. I do workshops, training programs, and retreats. My backyard is my retreat. It is what I call a poor man's paradise. And I am out here in the morning before work, all weekend, every weekend, working in the garden from the middle of February to the middle of November. I want to review some of the concepts now that might be helpful to you if you want to have your own backyard vision quest, your own Belle Isle vision quest, a drive up to the mountains, how to enrich your time in nature. The very first suggestion is to go in nature, to take the time, to make it a priority. I've done more than 200 retreats in nature, from 1 day long to 40 days in length, with corporation groups, with church community groups, with counseling groups, with friends, with my kids' friends. We have undeniably a need for peace and recreation and time in nature. So I encourage you to go out of your way, take the time, plan it, spend some time in nature. Now, how can you enrich your time in nature? Well, get to a place and stop. Close your eyes. There's a breathing technique that I teach all my clients called the 10-minute miracle. Simply put, you close your eyes, you breathe 8 times normally. You open your eyes and you take 3 very deep breaths. Then you close your eyes and you breathe normally, 8 normal cycles. Then you open your eyes and you take 3 deep breaths. I find that there is no quicker or more empowering way to open to the wonder of nature and to leave behind your worries, anxieties, and concerns than by getting some oxygen to your brain and practicing this breathing rhythm. The rhythm itself will keep you focused and drive your thoughts away so that you can open your senses and open your experience to nature. I encourage people to take a journal and to write about the things that fascinate them. You know, what was it about the new potatoes that was interesting? What was it about the blossoming tomato? What was it about the onions that have passed and the new set that is coming in? When you go out into nature, stop and notice. There's an exercise that I do called Fascinations. During the exercise of Fascinations, we notice the things that really capture our attention. We write about them. We ask ourselves, what has this come to teach me at this time in my life? To deepen and quiet and expand your awareness. Another thing, another way to enrich your time in nature is don't take any food, or take very little food. Just take a little trail mix. Let your body work. Get a little hungry. Take plenty of water, but take very little food. If you go with a loved one or a family member, separate. Sit in one place for 10 or 15 minutes alone. The classical wilderness vision quest, the classical vision quest that natives did was 3 days alone in nature, fasting on food, fasting from sleep, sometimes fasting from water, to provoke a very powerful experience. Imagine being in nature in one place without moving for 3 days. Think of all the things that you would let go of. Think of the fears that you might be provoked to experience and survive and experience adrenaline and experience dark and experience light. There's so many ways that we can enrich our experience in nature, and open our brains to inspiration, intuition, imagination, creativity, illumination, even revelation. These are states of consciousness that are available to every one of us, that very few of us know how to provoke, that give us both a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives, and also a sense of direction, a sense of where we need to invest our time to make a difference, to make a living, to make a meaningful living. Another wonderful suggestion: take a sketch pad, take a set of colored pencils, take some oil or chalk pastels, and draw the thing in nature that inspires and delights you. This is all in the service of slowing down, opening up what's called the right side of the brain, the more creative, imaginative dimensions of consciousness. So take the time to draw or sketch the things that fascinate you. This will slow you down. This will open you up. This will give you a chance to be touched, to be moved, to make an impression, to make a memory, to sketch a memory, to share a memory with people who aren't as privileged as you might be to take this kind of time. This is a backyard vision quest. My name is Michael Brown. I live and practice in Richmond, Virginia. And I'll end with a little recorder, with a little flute music.